Hello?
Pastor Paul.
Yeah.
How
Mike,
do I sound? Pretty good? Okay.
Yeah, let's see. Let's check the sound here. We've had sound issues. The first 4 minutes of this broadcast, we had no sound at all. So I said, this must be a real important night tonight. Mike, it's great to have you. How you doing tonight?
Good to be here. I'm doing okay. Lots of happenings around the world. Huh?
Yes, I mean, really. And we wanted to name these. Folks, you guys need to know that I do not send Mike from around the world any information about the shows, what it's about. I never do. We talk about it a little bit before he comes on, but he just shoots from the cuff and just updates us according to the intel he gets and what's pertinent in information. And Mike, there's a lot going on, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Isn't it funny how these things they kind of coalesce right before Thursday, and that seems like the norm now, doesn't it?
Yes. Speaking of that, we had another volcano eruption, Mount Etna. That's the 11th eruption in 3 weeks there in Sicily, Italy, and they're getting violent and they're historic even. Your thoughts?
It's very unfortunate. Of course, over the years my heart's heavy for Italy, and because they're in trouble. They sit on a massive, massive plethora of magma tubes and everything else, and at some point, it's not going to be too good for them.
No, it won't. And you've been warning for at least 4 years. You always say that this is a greater danger in this part of the world, Italy, than Cascadia, subduction zone, than Yellowstone. I mean, I think there's one place down there somewhere in Indonesia or somewhere. Where's that at? Or near New Zealand that you're concerned about? I forgot the name of that.
Well, there's Tamaulipas, and that's right below that. That's well below Japan, but it's still below Japan. And Italy is massive. It is incredible. That place is so big. By the way, Tamaulipas is one of the biggest volcanoes in our solar system. So it's not just a huge volcano on this Earth. It's a huge volcano throughout all the planets. So it's a monster. And hopefully, if that goes off, we're done anyway. We're just finished. But eventually it will go off. Italy, however, is highly populated. Their scientists are stressed. They can't put out information that's false, or they go to jail. So there's a penalty if they make a false prediction. So they're not going to make a prediction, and that makes it's just a very unfortunate set of circumstances. It will cost lives, and these things are happening now.
Mike, when you say that, I didn't know that. So that's why we don't get very good forecasting about volcanoes and earthquakes. So let me ask you, should they be warning? I mean, if they could speak freely, would they say everyone on the island of Italy or everybody in Italy needs to evacuate? Would they tell Rome?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah, they would warn everybody out there. In fact, they had some conversations about that privately, but they can't come out publicly. Last time they made a false call in Italy, some scientists went to jail. It's a serious charge behind that, so they can't make these predictions at all. I continually, pray for those folks because they're unaware. They're too at ease with some of the conditions that they face. But I'm hoping that some of the current activity will give them a bit of caution to do what they have to do. They're going to have to do what they do by guidance. It's not like they can run to another part of the world, and that's another unfortunate condition. That's a lot of people moving at one time, and we just all know that's not going to happen. It's going to cause that's going to be just one of those devastating things that people wake up to. Not to mention that, Paul, they have, as of late, in Europe and in Italy, the influx of Middle Eastern folks has been so large, so continuous, that there's a population shift in both places, which is, it's another conversation, but that's setting up for some of the tactical conditions that we're going to face in conjunction with these eruptions, because some of the radiation coming into our planet is so incredibly high, it's just overcharging the Earth. And of course, the Earth has begun a process that's not going to end anytime in the near future. It's going to continue to change and morph and change some more. We just have some incredible conditions that are forming. Is anybody talking about the permafrost in Canada?
No. Well, I mean, I've heard about it periodically, but not in a big way. Why? What's going on?
the ground underneath Canada starting to freeze, which is odd. It's really starting to change. The temperatures are staying too consistent in certain parts of Canada, which means the poles are going to heat up. But Canada it looks like Canada could be part of the new one of the Arctic regions, which is going to shift everything with us down to about the border of Texas. That's going to be like North Dakota.
So, whoa. So Canada may become part of the Arctic Circle, and we become like North Dakota?
Yeah, all the way down to Texas, to that Texas line. Could be like North Dakota. So we're gonna see severe shifts of weather patterns. You know what? Your public scientists who are getting paid by the government, so on and so forth. These guys, I tell you, they're in a trap. I know a couple of these guys. They hate to say what they have to say. They hate to write reports. They start to eat at their conscience because they don't want to. They just don't want to go forward with what they're being paid to do. But how else would they feed their families? You know, that's something they're going to have to sort out. In fact, that goes much further than them. There are quite a few scientists right now who are having pressure put on them not to stir up the public, as everybody, things are changing around the world and rapidly. But nobody's saying anything about it. They would argue the political points, but they're not telling anybody about the changes in our ecosystem. They're not telling anybody about the changes in our atmospheric conditions and weather patterns. They're just not doing it. But these scientists, they have had enough. They're ready to walk away. They're ready to just give up and walk away. But where would they go?
Mike, you talking about atmospheric changes, radiation, permafrost in Canada, shifting of the poles sound like. What about this space hurricane insane that went on this week? This thing was gigantic. This has never happened before, or at least they've never reported this before, Mike. What is this?
Well, some of this stuff that we look at, we're looking at the formation of massive storms on the Earth, just massive storms. And these phenomena are going to continue to grow. You know, on Mars, for example, they have recorded high winds on Mars that were just super high. I believe the first excuse was because of the thinner atmosphere. But we know that's not true because other planets have thicker atmospheres with higher wind speeds, right? A lot of people thought it was impossible for the Earth to have straight line winds at near 200 miles an hour. Wrong. That was recorded. 2020. That was already recorded. So, but we're going to have more of those episodes right here on Earth. See, they've laughed. They said there's no way. Well, you had some, I don't know what you call them, romper room scientists that came out and said, well, you can never have 200-mile-an-hour winds, you know, on Earth. Earth's atmosphere can't sustain that. Well, it happened twice. It happened twice. And it will, you know, these things are going to continue to happen. But it's dangerous because when people reject knowledge like that, people end up getting hurt because they don't know any different. They think that it's kind of like if a hurricane was coming, but you thought it was just a sprinkle, a shower. You say, oh, it'll pass over, kids. Just have a seat. But it doesn't, right? It consumes you. So what we have now are weather patterns that are forming that are enormous. And the potential is just off the scales. They will cause lots of damage, right? Side note, anybody who does roofs, right? If you're a roofer, get your tools ready because the whole U.S. is going to need some roofers this year.
What? Because of tornadoes, hurricanes? What do you?
Well, no, not that. Not because of that. Because of stuff falling into the tops of the buildings.
Whoa!
We're going to have. If you have sustained winds, I want you guys to think about hail, right? There are a few charts, mathematical formula that you deal with when you're dealing with hail. Well, for the last few years, consistently, there have been hail events on the Earth that have been catastrophic. Softball size hail has been falling 2018 and 19, a bit bigger, softball size. That means a wet, consistent golf ball size. The sizes are increasing by a fractional factor, which means this year we could see hail, maybe a softball and a half, right? That's too heavy. That's going right through a roof. That's going to just tear up roof. And people will be switching from tile to some of the new roofing composite materials so that all that heavy debris can just bounce off of it. It's going to be good employment for those who do roofings because we're going to deal with some bad hail problems.
Well, Mike, now you said, and first of all, folks, this is Mike from Around the World with us tonight. And 5 years ago, I remember I was still in. We were still at the apartment, and I remember sitting in there. And the first time I heard you say straight line winds is coming, 150 plus this year, and I said, "What are you talking about? Straight line winds, 150 mile an hour." That was the first time you made that mention. Then you started saying, and then it happened. It happened in the UK. It happened all over the place. Well, then you said, "Hey, 200 mile an hour winds are coming," and it's happened, as you said, recorded twice last year. You said that as the atmospheric compression comes down and the jet stream continues to come closer to the surface of the earth, the straight line winds and storms will exponentially increase in intensity. And hail will get bigger and bigger because there's higher and faster winds. I was wondering about this space hurricane. Could that create a mega hailstorm where 100-pound hail balls fall, like it says in Revelation chapter 11? I mean, is that, because this is the first time they've ever seen a hurricane in our upper atmosphere. Mike, what is happening?
Well, Pastor Paul, this is part of the change. Remember, the reason why they're seeing it is because of more and more particles are being introduced into the upper atmospheres, right? It's causing it to become more and more dense.
Well, where are they coming from? Where's these particles coming?
We have tons. Every single day we have millions of tons of debris that come and hit our planet on a daily basis. This is what just passes people's minds. This is every single day somebody dies from some sort of a meteor impact. Or meteorite impact every single day. People have property damage and everything else. It's increasing. It will hit the point where people are going to start walking outside with an umbrella, right? Or a steel umbrella, because they're thinking about, well, something might pop me in the head today. So you'll have unexpected projectiles into the atmosphere.
Steel umbrellas?
Well, they're going to have something because they're going to be afraid that they're going to get hit by meteorites. That will also cause infrastructure damage. And I warn about these things because it sounds like it's science fiction. It sounds like the beginning of a bad B movie or something like that, but it's not. It's reality. It's very real.
You're the one
extremely real.
You're the one that told us about the straight line winds. You're the guy that told us about the increase in volcanism. You're the guy that told us about the virus that hit last year. And speaking of, and I'm going to go there in a minute, but before I do, I got to ask you about this. When you're censored on meteorites, we had a meteorite explode over Vermont this week, and we had another one a few days ago over the UK. Matter of fact, they're finding pieces of that one in people's driveways and places. You are right. This is increasing all over the globe now. Dash cams are catching it every day. So is this the beginning of the trickle of these two big debris clouds that you've been saying is coming, soon? 200...
Oh, yeah.
2 million miles.
2021 would be comparable to, you being on a beach and all of a sudden there's no water out there, but all of a sudden you see small waves coming up. So 2021 would be the introduction of that. Now, it's also going to cause fires in places we did not have fires before. In fact, it's going to be fires in places that people are not capable of dealing with fires. That, in turn, Pastor Paul, is going to superheat certain parts of the atmosphere that do not need to be heated, and which that just causes cascading events to happen throughout the U.S. So one problem will exacerbate another problem, and it's going to continue this way. We have part of the Atlantic right now is very active, and we have current, the streams. The current in the ocean has altered itself yet again because of the temperature differences in the lateral vortices that are taking place in the oceans. All this combined is going to continue to wear down so many continents and cause these bubbles and shifts and everything else in the continents. It really will destabilize all those who live near coastal regions. It's going to begin to destabilize their living habits. As I said once before, people are going to be terrified of thunderstorms, or that word storm period. When they give weather reports and they start talking about a thunderstorm, that's going to make people's hearts drop when they start talking about this, because people are going to be so overwhelmed with the damage.
What I mean, wind, lightning, hail,
all of it. All of it's going to be increased by magnitudes that are just simply hard to think about. Imagine a derecho. A derecho can have sustained winds of 150 or 60 miles an hour. And but they thought that was impossible, and they came up with this term derecho the year it took place. A lot of people during those derechos, they couldn't believe straight line winds could do that. Well, they're going to have to come up with at least 10 more scientific terms or meteorological terms. I messed that word up, didn't I? That will explain some of the stuff that will happen this year, because you're looking at hurricanes that will span not only the totality of the U.S. Now, just think about this. Think about a hurricane. What in the world would you call a hurricane, right? That will be the size of the United States of America. What do you call that?
Mike. Wait, time out. No, time out. A hurricane the size of the United States, 3,000 miles wide?
That's right.
When's that coming?
Now, it sounds impossible, right?
Right.
But I have a challenge. Go back to last year, right? Go back to last year. 2 specific storms. Look at those storms when they were in the Atlantic. That's all you have to do. That's all you have to do is look at those storms and be careful. But the people on the Weather Channel, all right, they're pretty good at what they do, but they also get paid. So they have to kind of dampen some of the effects of some of the things that
Are
people
you serious? See. Are you saying that the weather, the meteorologists, and I messed that word up too, so don't worry about it, Mike. Are you saying that that they're not giving us the full scope and detail of the storms, just like I feel like they're not giving us the full scope and detail of the earthquakes? Are you saying that
they can't do it? They can't do it. If they were to do that, right, it's called not exposing, right, and unnecessary information to people that will not impact their lives. So if it's not going to kill you, they're not going to tell you about it. And the reason they do this is because they get paid. They're ultimately paid by the federal government, right? Which, by the way, is ultimately lobbied by some other companies. So they're corporate. These are corporate companies. And they get paid to keep the standard. If they don't keep that standard, somebody's going to have a problem with that. So they can't go into stories making forecasts that are 100% accurate. If they were to do that, they would scare too many people. They do this with hurricanes. They send out the warnings and everything else. But normally, they will not give the information one is looking for. They cover it live so they can act like it's a surprise for them, too. The prediction models that they have, they hardly ever utilize what they really forecast, because it could be very accurate. But what they try to do is incorporate some sort of a psychological implementation with the people to kind of downgrade any fears that they may have about the weather. They don't want people frightened about the weather. Unfortunately, guess what? It's going to happen this year. People are going to be frightened with the weather. Right now, there are folks who have dealt with flood rains, right? They don't want to hear that word water. They don't want to hear the word rain, because they know that every time it rains, you have certain parts of the U.S. that continually flood now. It's almost like the soil is saturated. And it is saturated, but not with fresh water. It's saturated with salt water. And parts of the earth underneath us is hardened. It's very hard. So it can't take as much water as it did 5 years ago.
So, Mike, let me ask you a question, because the microburst is a new term that we got out of, micro bombs, cyclone bombs. We've heard of polar vortex. As you said, they're coming up with new terms. But this microburst, and this has been happening now for the last couple of years, since Harvey, really since Hurricane Harvey, where it just sat there for like 4 days and just. Let me ask you a question. They're saying now that coastal flooding is going on all over the world, coastal flooding in coastal cities. And I was talking to Heidi about this this afternoon, and she said, you might want to run that by Mike. Is this being caused by the gravitational pull of Planet X or from the binary system, or is there something else causing? Why are we getting seas rising at this point?
Okay, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Some of the graphics I'm coming up with, they do explain this in more simpler fashion where you can actually see it. But as we continue to absorb radiation, by the way, the gamma ray output of the Earth is increasing also. I suspect that thickness in people will soon really begin to take place. We can only take so much radiation until we start having physiological changes in the body. So anyway, but the Earth continues to absorb that radiation coming from out there, right? GCL's galactic cosmic rays, they come into this, to our solar system. We absorb this through the sun. As it affects us, it affects the sun. As we swell, the sun's temperatures and its intensity is going to increase. It's going to increase. And in fact, our absorption rate of the radiation is directly proportional to the intensity of infrared light that the sun is putting off right now. It's directly proportional. As that infrared light, those emissions become more intense, penetrating through our atmosphere, you're going to have more and more ice melts that nobody's able to explain. This is why you can have, it can be 10 degrees, right, outside, just snowed, and then all of a sudden the sun comes out and all the snow melts at 10 degrees. So we have a greater intensity of the sun, and it will continue. I mean, it's going to continue to get hotter and hotter and hotter. And infrared heat, by the way, works like this. If you had a room, and outside of that room you had an infrared light pointed to that room, as soon as you step out of the room, you're going to get burned, right? You step back into the room, into the shadows, and you're going to freeze to death. You step back out there in the heat, you're going to burn. That's how infrared heat works. So it's causing massive temperature differentials on the Earth. So in the shade, people are going to find in the shade is going to be much, much cooler than it normally is. And in the sun, it's going to start cooking your skin as soon as you step out in the sun, which, by the way, it's going to kick up cancer rates. It's really going to kick up cancer rates.
Mike around the world, folks. There's what it says in Revelation 16 to confirm what you're saying. In verse 8, the fourth angel poured out his vial upon the sun, and power was given unto him to scorch men with fire. The men were scorched with great heat, and blasphemed the name of God, which had power over these plagues, and they repented not to give him glory. So you're saying the sun is going to be affected by something that's making the sun volatile. The Bible just calls it an angel pouring out its wrath upon the sun. But scientifically, what's happening is the sun's being affected by what? Gravitational pull, or the passing of this binary system?
Yeah, you're looking at energies being, at some point we're going to reach a parallax where both bodies begin to interchange energies. That's going to be devastating for us. That's going to be so different. By the way, as the magnetic influence from this other body continues to come into our solar system, get ready for your brains, because our minds cannot work with a disrupted magnetic shield. Pastor Paul, they have experiments on this about your brain, my brain, and everybody else's brain. Christians, I hope you're listening to this. They have already proven, they have countless experiments with the best experts on the planet, having people isolated under the earth, right? They cut off the Schumann resonance frequency, right? No resonance.
Yeah, what's that about?
Places. Here's what happens. As soon as they turn it off, the people became angry, agitated, hateful, one toward the other, sick. They became physically sick, physically ill. They had high fevers. They had to separate everybody. They were quite violent. Pastor Paul, now that happened within 2 minutes of them shutting off that frequency. Guess what happened after they ran that for an hour, because they had to cut it short? Now, it was 64 people in the last experiment, and the last experiment took place in 2020. 64 people. At the end of the mark, they turned it on. After the minute mark, guess what happened?
What happened?
Everybody was okay. Everybody was okay.
So, in a way, they went kind of insane Until they turned it back on.
They were so highly agitated. Listen, they collected so much data from this that people, one of their jobs was to write down what they were feeling. They had to dictate what they were feeling. They had to talk. That's all they had to do was talk. They became so enraged. They broke the recorders. They broke the writing. They were jotting down notes and everything else. They broke that. They wanted to find somebody else in the room. They came up with wild stories in their heads. They were like raving lunatics. But then they were physically sick. They were physically sick. They began to regurgitate. Many of them had vertigo. They were dizzy. They had flu-like symptoms, high fever, you name it. As soon as they introduced this frequency again, within a minute, everything returned back to normal. They remembered everything they did. They were ashamed of it, Pastor Paul, because they said it was like they couldn't explain the agitation. They couldn't explain why they were so enraged. They couldn't do it. And I think this experiment is excellent for Christians to understand something, that if you are a believer in Christ, you have the component of flesh, but you also have the component of the Spirit that commands the flesh. But if you're not operating by the Spirit now, you can forget it when the time comes and you need it. See, because we're going to need that discipline of the Spirit, which is why, because I do read the Bible, and the Bible it says we are to walk by the Spirit, not after the flesh. Right. And the more we're not moved by these things in the earth, I'll say it again, the more we're not moved by these things in the earth, the more discipline we're going to have, the better off we're going to be.
Now, this is huge information, Mike. Hang on just a second. You're saying the federal government of the United States took 64 people, put them in an isolated environment, and shut the frequency off on them that we're all experiencing right now. And when they did, the people went absolutely basically they went violent. They began to say things and do things and want to do things and even become physically sick. To the point they become absolutely enraged. They become, it sounds like a lot of anger, a lot of frustration. They become violent.
They were.
And then when when they turned it back on, everybody settled back down. And yet
Within 1 minute. Within 1 minute.
Mike.
Yeah. Now this was, Pastor Paul, this was 3 corporations and universities. Now I'm assuming anytime you start talking about corporations backing experiments like this, you know that the federal government is involved some type of way. They're involved sometime. All the findings they're going to go into a database somewhere with the federal government. But they're tearing this information down. This is, Pastor Paul, they've had so many of these experiments. How many times they have to continue to gather? I suspect this one was to confirm some of our placement changes in the solar system. A lot of people right now, some of you guys who are in contact with other folks, listen to me. They want to find out, are we affected today the same way we were 4 years ago? Because we're in a different place right now, and they want to know, a lot of researchers want to know, are we physiologically the same as we were 4 years ago? Because we're just not in the same place.
Wait a minute. When you say we're not in the same place, what are you talking about?
We have moved. Our solar system is constantly moving. Our galaxy is constantly moving. So we're in a different place.
So are you saying the gravitational pull, the effects of the incoming binary system?
Not only that, we're in a different place. There are exotic elements that were only theorized that we're starting to entertain. There's a different type of physics that's having to be introduced, because some of these elements offset some of our constants that are utilized in physics formulas, that physics will not stand up in the presence of these different types of theorized alloys. You have some really exotic alloys out there in space that will just blow your mind. They have properties beyond belief. They do things based on heat and cold. They're just very different. Some of them are spooky. They call them the spooky elements. They're very spooky. They do things they're not supposed to do. So, and it looks like it's magic. for it to just make something short, but it's just a different type of physics. But yeah, we're in a different place right now, Pat Ball. So,
all right, now, Mike, let's talk about this. I'm going to keep that way. That's going to be another show right there. Like, where are we? But before we go there, let's talk a little bit about. You said last week that there's another, either a virus or another strain, another variant coming. We just got information today that the B117 variant, called the perfect storm, is really aggressively spreading in the United Kingdom and other countries. Matter of fact, it's making up the 50% of all new cases in Texas, Florida, and Georgia here in America. From what we understand, it's even a lot of it around near a wastewater treatment plant in Houston, Texas. And is this B117 variant, is this what you're talking about, or should I look for something worse?
No, well, the B117 is one. It's only one element, one element. Remember, I said they would call it COVID-19, but it would not be COVID-19.
Right.
Well, I said that. They're going to call it COVID-19, but that's not what it is. And the reason why I say that is the COVID-19, this variant of COVID-19, 201/501Y.V1, that means something, right? The 201/501Y.V1 means something. That's what it actually is. So they were actually following the mutations of the virus. This mutation, this 117 mutation, is affecting quite a few places. It's not only in the U.S., it's not only in the U.K., it's all over the place, and it's growing. It's quite dangerous, and I'll tell you why. Now, I'm not a doctor or anything, not a medicine, but I'll explain this.
And just so you know, Mike, as you explain this, be a little careful. We don't want to talk about the vaccinations at all.
No. It has nothing to do about that.
Just because of the censorship threat here. Okay, go ahead.
Right. Okay, the current coronavirus, this little virus they have hooks, they have spikes on them, right? They have spikes. These spikes are formed from 3 intertwined proteins.
Yep.
Within those proteins, it takes about 1,273 amino acids to make up these proteins. Now, the new strain has changed the spikes. It has 2 deletion and 6 substitution elements of it, which changes the spikes in a different shape, different form. They do this by the N501Y is a mutation designation, which makes it much more contagious because the 501st amino acid in the spike protein is switched from one type to another. That's all I'll say to keep the names down for asparagine for all you who understand it. The mutation, because it deletes factors of the original structure of the spikes. Right? It changes it. It can now attach itself. It can attach itself to different points, right, of the receptors of a human cell. So now it used to be attracted to one type of protein. You used to utilize that, but now it can attach itself. Literally, here it is. It can change itself to attach to just about anything. See, we have a problem here with this one, because COVID-19 normally affected and would kill certain individuals with a high rate of a certain type of protein.
Yes.
Period.
Yes.
Right? Yes. Because those old spikes, of which COVID-19 had quite a few, these old spikes would attach itself to the receptors of certain human cells. This thing has rewritten itself. It's rewritten. This thing has rewritten itself, and so now, instead of having these 3 intertwined proteins, it dropped some of the elements, picked up some more elements, altering the tips of the hooks, where it can actually attach to other types of proteins. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is this: that one spike, right, had one attachment point. One.
Yeah.
This new variant, for each spike, it has multiple attachment points. And do you know what that means? That means it's a much higher infection rate, because it's 3 times higher per spike than the original virus. So say if a virus cluster had 2 million spikes, well, then the contagion factor would go up 3 million times.
So in your opinion, and this is 1 year ago today, the World Health Organization finally agreed that we had a global pandemic called, and now it's 1 year later. The President of the United States just gave a 24-minute speech in which I listened very closely to and I watched the body language. And what I was getting out of that was he was basically saying everybody is going to have to get involved. I don't want to go any further. Now, having said that, he said, or else something worse is coming. Do you think what you're explaining to me, that this B117, this thing is like 100 times worse than the first because of its ability to be highly more infectious or contagious? Is that right?
That's right.
Does it have a high, so just the numbers of people getting it would be so much more greater. It obviously will increase, even if it's not as deadly. I don't know if it's as deadly or not. Maybe it is.
Well, yeah, it's as deadly. It's very aggressive. The study of this lineage of virus is just some bad stuff. This thing is not only the UK is dealing with this thing, but Australia, Brazil, Denmark, Japan, Netherlands, South Africa, Wales, Illinois, Louisiana, Ohio, Texas, of course, and in several other places. A lot of other states, it's already been found it's going to continue to do this because of its ability to rewrite its own code, so to speak. It's rewriting.
How does it rewrite? Are you sure it's rewriting it, or is somebody else rewriting it?
Oh, it's you know what? When you work with level 4, when you're in a level 4 facility, say like the one in Wuhan, right? They just put up there. It was just terrible, and the UK warned about it. This thing's going to jump free anyway. You can actually, because listen, they have mapped all the elements to all the viruses. You got to hear me on this. In other words, they have compartmentalized each part to a virus, so they can literally right now, within minutes, they can give somebody $10 billion, and they can say, "Hey, buddy, I'm going to give you this part and this part and this part. Can you go ahead and put me together this virus that does this and have it to me by next week or something like that?" Say, "Oh yeah, do you have the parts available? Yes, we'll go put it together and give it to me." I'm telling you, it works just like that. They have all this stuff put together, and in fact, those in the Navy are the ones most concerned about the ability of just your average person out there. But they have to have some knowledge. That they keep telling people they can literally put together just about anything because they have mapped just about everything concerning these pathogens. And they have all the elemental parts to put one together to manufacture new ones. They have made specific viruses, right? Because when you go into a level 4 facility, they'll make a virus to see if they can come up with some sort of a fix for a disease that's already out there. How do you do that? You make one twice as bad. And then you make your solution that will tackle the unforeseen issues, right? And then you put it out there in public experimentation. Is basically what it is. Then you put together some monsters. COVID-19 is just one of many monsters. Now, these viruses often have an ability, because they slapped it together, they don't understand that it can biologically mutate its core functionality. It also has RNA, so it can begin to rewrite things, utilize the host DNA to utilize in itself, and then it becomes something brand new. Right? So they're sitting there creating, these are called chimera viruses, by the way. COVID-19 is likely a chimera virus. That is an engineered virus. Chimera virus is an engineered virus. So I'm saying it's likely a chimera virus. I doubt if anybody's going to admit that this year or next year, the year after, but it's likely a chimera virus. And if it is, it has some extraordinary properties that will allow it to go to further and further extremes based upon who it's exposed to. So think of a virus that travels from host to host, but if it ever attaches itself to somebody with different genetic properties, it then utilizes that to enhance itself, and then it infects everybody else, right, in its enhanced stages. So this is what you're looking at. This thing is, it's just not good.
No, it's not. Folks, Mike from around the world's with us tonight. We're giving you some great intel for tonight that I'm sure you need to know. And we're talking about the perfect storm, and there's several perfect storms. That's what we're saying. The perfect storms in space, perfect storms on Earth, perfect storms in different arenas. Let's talk about another arena of a perfect storm, and that is in the Middle East. Because what we're hearing, Mike, I got some intel today and some more information that there is a airbase, a large airbase being built it's either in the United Arab Emirates or it's in Saudi Arabia, but I think it's in the United Arab Emirates. And it's so big that you wouldn't build one this big normally unless you were preparing for a serious war. We've heard repeatedly that Israel has to prepare itself to go to war with Iran. We just saw Benjamin Netanyahu last week hold a secret meeting, supposedly, but everybody found out about it, with the United Arab Emirates, with Saudi Arabia, with Bahrain, and some others to discuss how to prepare with Iran. Do you know anything about this new air base? It's on an island, by the way. Do you know anything about this air base? And if you do, can you tell us what about it and what it may mean in the next 6 months or so for the world?
Well, I wouldn't give it that long, but it's already, out there that the U.S. has expanded its presence in Saudi Arabia, right? That began with President Trump. Of course, people know about Qatar's air base, Al Udeid. So you have an expansion of our military presence in the Middle East. We have treaties with aircraft and everything else. We have to facilitate some of the newer equipment, some of the strict equipment that's going over to Israel also. That has to be done. But we also, most of the aircraft that are sent to the Middle East, right? Israel has to strip out all the electronics, all your nav systems and everything else. We ship them a shell, basically, right? And they put in their own electronics and everything else. Well, we ship other countries limited tech aircraft, meaning we don't put everything that we have in them in their copies. We don't do that. We're not going to do that. No. So they get downgraded machinery. If we go to war, right, and if it's in close proximity to, say we have a problem with Russia and Iran, right?
Okay, yeah.
Your normal Air Force dispatcher is not going to be able to handle that. The Qatar Air Base is not going to be able to handle that. So you have to bring some fully loaded tech down to the Middle East and have it be there. But unfortunately, the aircraft carriers are already stacked. We can't fit it there. So we'd have to bring everything loaded to the Middle East. The only way to do that is to have a secure air base where you can actually where we could bring our tech and not have it fall into the wrong hands, into a supportive airbase like that, right? Because again, when the U.S. gives somebody else an aircraft, it is dumbed down. That's the term everybody understands, right? Dumbed down. So they take the goodies out, and these other countries put in their own stuff. If we have to support a real war, we're going to need real facilities back there to back up everything that we're doing. So to bring everything in theater, you have to bring in, if you're bringing your modern day arsenal, you're going to have modern day support systems.
I got it.
So there you go.
Yeah.
And Saudi Arabia, by the way, but we have a problem already.
What's that?
Saudi Arabia. Watch what Saudi Arabia does this week. Watch what they do this week. In fact, watch what they do from now until the next time we talk. We'll likely talk about some of the moves they made because I'll say it again. That whole place is going to be wiped off the face of the earth. Your people are going to see why here shortly. They're going to be wiped off the face of the earth.
Are you saying Saudi Arabia is going to be wiped out off the face of the earth?
I tell you what, here it is. I know people won't agree with me. We cannot trust Saudi Arabia.
Right.
We cannot trust Jordan. I know it hurts to the heart of a great many people, but we cannot. I know it's good for money and good for trade. This, that, and the other is not good for tyrants that rise in the Middle East. We can't do it because they will ultimately side with those who are going to agree with them. And if anybody's ever been over there in Saudi Arabia to get to know these folks, Pastor Paul, they're not like you and I. These folks are not like you and I. They are, they're just like a hidden viper, right, in the grass. They're not going to make a sound or do anything until they're ready to strike. And when they strike, they're going to inject all the venom they have. That's how these guys are. So even the policies that have to be put forth in the Middle East are going to call for some type of accountability. That's already shifted or changed. And Putin is in Saudi Arabia, initializing deals with them already. We're going to see this play out this week. So keep your eyeballs on them.
So now you're saying, you're trying to, okay, I'm hearing you. I hear you with Putin and Iran and the Russia and Iran. That coalition's been going on for some time now.
Saudi Arabia.
And Saudi Arabia. And now you're bringing Saudi Arabia into the fold here, which Saudi Arabia says, though, they want to be part of this coalition with Israel against Iran. And there's no doubt Iran is the arch enemy of Saudi Arabia. Is Iran going to be the one that wipes Saudi Arabia off the map, or is it Russia?
Russia and Iran are one in the same. I never separate the two. Have you noticed?
I know. You never separate them. They're tied together at the hip, and I think in the Bible they are as well. In Ezekiel 38, absolutely, you can't have one without the other. And Turkey's the wild card, so there's a lot going on here. I think so I guess you've answered the question as far as this new air base. You're confirming, yes, it's being built by the United States, I'm hearing. It may be in conjunction with some of the partners over there. It's no doubt to protect some of our interests as well as maybe Israel's interests and others as it relates to Iran and Russia's threat. And again, I'll keep them together with you because they do move together. It's a dangerous.
They do. They in fact, they just put up. They just extended their early warning system. They just extended that. That's Russian equipment, right? Russia. They finally confirmed that Russia gave them their brand new missile equipment, both defensive and offensive. They have the new satellites. They have the hypersonic missiles.
Yes.
They actually have those. They're just, and you know what, people who think that Iran is not a place you can play with, you just can't play with that place. And by the way, there's a spiritual element to Iran that a lot of people are just simply not aware of. They're not aware of the spiritual element of Iran. I'll say this, nothing will happen to Iran before certain things take place. I think they know this. Here's why I say this, Pascal. Do you know how many times countries have attempted to go into Iran and they failed?
Yeah.
Do you not realize that the U.S. has done this a couple times and it failed?
Yeah. But
it didn't tell anybody. That Germany tried it. The coalition forces tried it. All the coalition forces failed to do it. Equipment failures began to happen.
Well, okay. Now, as you're talking about this, let's and I want to talk about the greatest perfect storm of all, and that's the spiritual storm. Look, angels and demons are at war. Michael's standing up. We can read it in Daniel chapter 12. We can read about Daniel when he prayed. Was it Daniel that prayed and he couldn't get his prayer through because the prince of Persia was in the way. We know that there's a lot of spiritual war. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. Okay, but before I go there, Mike, what we're hearing is right now is there is a conflict. There's a situation developing. The Pope went to Zergorat in Ur. Heidi just did a Patreon for us because I can't put that on here, what she found. But I'm going to ask you, and folks, if you haven't seen that, go to my Patreon channel and watch Heidi's presentation. She posted it yesterday. It's incredible. Okay, I'm just going to say, I'm going to ask Mike about it. Mike, did the Pope, are you talking about Babylon, aren't you? You're talking about Iran, Iraq, that area in there, Babylon, Mr. Babylon. There's something spiritual has to reawaken. Is the Pope, when he went, does he know what he's doing in there? What's going on?
Yes, he knows there's something under the lands, first of all. In 1998, the U.S. military secured that site, 1998. That site was protected. Some things were taken from that place, were shared with the UK, right? But the U.S., we kind of had to change the terms of the agreement. So some things took place there. Pope, here's what's so dangerous about this. The Pope cannot he's compromising, right? That he's not appeasing or anything. He's compromising. He's telling them they can have peace with everybody else. They cannot. In fact, anybody who sits there and they tout, oh, now we found a path to peace. Well, if I tell you what I'm going to do, the first time I hear somebody say on television, oh, guess what? The world, we have found a way to peace. I'm going to go ahead and put my camera on. I'm going to suit up. I'm going to get out, because that's when sudden destruction is going to come upon a great many things. When they have made it, when they have their way to peace, and I'm telling you, this door has been opened. The Pope opened the door. When they have their way to peace, it's bad.
Sudden destruction. Bad. When they say peace and safety, then cometh sudden destruction.
He did it during this meeting. He initialized some things that will, and here's the bad part. They liked it. They didn't reject it. That's the bad part. They liked it. How in the world? Anyway, but some things took place where this could be initialized. This could actually be initialized. He could have initialized this step. It could have been initialized.
So you're thinking he may have actually opened a prophetic window where now a portal has opened, and he may have just initiated the beginning of when they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh. He's in Mystery Babylon when he does it. He's in Babylon when he does it.
That's right. So if this is the initiate, then if he initialized this thing, it's not going to be too long before they come out and tell the world, hey, listen, we have an announcement. We have a path here. We've agreed to take this path. But it's not going to be too long before he makes that declaration. That means certain things are active already. The telltale sign is going to be the different activities that will take place in the Middle East. Because you know that certain sides in the Middle East cannot agree. If they start all of a sudden agreeing to things, and I'll tell you, that's been a response from the Middle East since the last presidency. Is the Middle East is different? How all of a sudden can those countries just start agreeing to everything, right? If something has changed, and then the Pope goes over there with the greatest. That's a big compromise, everybody. I'm sorry, I'm a Christian. I believe in Christ. I believe Christ is the only way. He's the truth and the light. I don't believe in compromise. I believe the other people have it dead wrong. Christ is the only way. And when he goes over there and he tells them that their way is okay too, that's an outright lie. That's just an outright lie. And I can't accept that. That's compromise. So anyway, but he did that, and these guys are on board with it. Paperwork is being developed right now.
Is this going to go to the United Nations? Is this going to wind up at the UN?
The conversation is already
at the UN. All right,
it's already there. It was like this great thing that happened. It is floating around. It's going to be not too long from now. They're going to make some type of announcement. They're going to announce this thing, and you know that Christianity is going to be shut down should they ever have peace like that. Christianity is shut down in the same breath. It's going to be gone and shut down
because true Christianity, true salvation through Jesus Christ our Lord, the only way to have salvation, will be considered hate speech, will be considered obnoxious, will be considered obsolete, and this new embraced one world type religious peace deal is what's coming, and it's coming, and that's what I'm hearing you say. Now that takes me to the perfect storm because of time constraints, Mike. So, if we're seeing all these storms, there's a big snowstorm going to hit Denver tomorrow. I mean, we're seeing all these storms, meteorites, volcanoes, earthquakes, hailstorms, coastal flooding, Hawaii's flooding, plagues, wars, rumors of wars. All of this, which is exactly what Matthew 24 says. Are we also about to see the warring in the heavens, or are they already on, Mike? Are the demons of hell and the angelic warriors of God, have they begun to clash in the heavens for this final battle that's about to take place?
Pastor, I don't know about anybody else, but I'll tell you something. The last 5 years, it's almost been like in people's personal lives, every day they wake up, they're in a battle. They're in a battle. It's almost like something that's following them very closely and wants them to agree with everything Satan has corrupted. But then you have the other angels, and based on our choices, I'm telling you, there's some tension, spiritual tension in the air. Not to mention, many people are observing celestial happenings. They don't know what it is, right?
Right.
But I believe it's starting to spill over. I believe it's starting to spill over. And there will come a time when that realm becomes one and the same with this realm, and then there will be no partition. We'll be seeing everything.
So are you saying
full
that
active mode?
Are we going to see are we going to see an alien invasion because we're going to see a demonic spillover of the angels of darkness? Are we going to see a spillover into our own physical recognition? It's going to come into our own dimension. Is that what you're saying?
I believe that will happen, but I also believe that's already initialized through a great many children. I think it's initialized because a lot of people right now are willing to entertain that subject in a very spiritual way. Well, what I mean by this is that people actually have joy behind these things already. That implies some type of worship, some type of strong desire they have within them to have their truth come from those things. They don't even know what those things are. Right? That stuff is still hidden behind a partition. We don't know if it's good or bad. In other words, they don't want their answer from the living God. They don't want it from Christ. They certainly don't want it via the Holy Spirit. They want it from extraterrestrials. They believe that they're coming. Man is actually writing a narrative Satan is going to be obliged to fulfill just for mankind, just to have them sifted all the way through. But even right now, it's very difficult to tell a person who believes in E.T. that Jesus is Lord. It's very difficult to tell them that because they can't conceive of that concept. They'll say, no, you're your own Lord. That's what they'll say because in fact, see, a lot of people are Christians. People listening to me are Christians. You're in somewhat of a sheltered world. There are things there are conversations happening outside of you that would just blow your mind about these people and what they actually follow on a day-to-day basis and what they believe. But not only that, but what they can manifest at will. I said manifest at will. The lights in the sky, they can manifest them at will. This is also spreading around the globe at an incredible rate. And it's just like, it's just getting bad. It's spiritually bad. And these things will spill over. Eventually, Christians are going to see it too. But I also believe that the Holy Spirit is going to build up within God's children, and that will be our protection from all of this stuff. We're going to see the truth. And in order to see the truth, you've got to be able to handle the truth. And, I'll give everybody something simple. That means, say you love someone, but then the Lord showed you the truth about that someone, and you saw something they did 20 years ago. If you don't hate the person for what they did 20 years ago, the Lord can trust you with the Holy Spirit. But if you hate a person for what they did 20 years ago, the Lord cannot trust you with the Holy Spirit.
Wow, it's huge.
To see the truth,
That's right.
You've got to be able to see both good and bad and still love the person right through it.
That's what real grace, that's what unconditional love is about between, let's say, human beings, a man and a wife, whatever, or people in general, your children, whoever, or friends. You have to get past that. You got to first understand that we're all fallen humanity, that we've all come short of the glory of God. There's none of us righteous, not one. And then you got, if you can forgive and move on, God can then work with you. And Mike, I'm hearing you say this, that we're going to need the power of the supernatural. God gave me a word this week. We can't trust in AI. We got to have SI. We can't have artificial intelligence. We need supernatural intelligence. We have to, and so that's what you're saying. I know you believe this. The church has to get real spiritual now. I'm not talking, I'm saying super anointed, spiritual in love, and we got to be wise as serpents, harmless as doves. But boy, we got to watch and pray, don't we, Mike? It's getting good. We're down to the end.
Pastor Paul, I tell you, to walk in love is a walk in real power.
That's
real
right.
Power.
That's right.
That power is found in the blood of the Lamb. I won't shift from that.
No.
So you know what? And the church does have to wake up to that. We can't walk half-footed anymore. We've got to come. We've got to stand all the way up and start walking forward and not shift left or right. This is that time. It really is that time.
This is it, Mike.
Yes, it is.
Next week, Mike, what are we going to be talking about next week?
Oh boy. Well, probably. Middle Eastern stuff and volcanism, absolutely. Hopefully no sad stories, but the border's building up, and that's not a good thing.
We'll see you next Thursday night, all right? Lord willing.
Sure
All
will.
right. Mike from around the world,
God bless
folks.
you, Pastor Paul.
God bless you, and thank you so much for your time in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay, my friends, what are you looking at? You're looking at the most important picture in history of light and the atomic realm. You say, whoa, come on, Roger. Well, yeah, come on. I'll show you why I can say that, and I can say that with quite a bit of authority. This is light coming from a red pulsed laser. Bip, 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 bip. And these particles show up in literally waves. And you say, oh, how could it be a wave? It's a particle. Well, that particle owns a magnetic region around itself which is absolutely enormous. And this does too. And when this one pushes on that one's region, it starts to glow. You see here's no big glow back here, starting to glow here, and then it explodes in the glow. Well, what is happening? I have a little demonstration. Hold on, here it is. This is what you see when a particle comes in. And you see here, black and white, black and white. That's two electrons back to back makes a photon. This will bounce off of something because it's complete. It has two particles. If that was only half of that, and it was an electron, it would incorporate in as static and lightning and electricity and all that does. But here's what's happening. These balls are coming, boom, 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 one after another. Well, they're stacking up here, trying to get through the Venturi. So this one's concussing with that one. And when they concuss, they glow. Now, here's the thing that really stimulates me, is I would have thought the glow was an emission of something. And it is not. Because this is not emitting anything. I could see it's still the same particles as it was here. There's no particles missing yet. However, it's glowing. They're stacking into each other's magnetic regions, and the push to shove makes heat. Heat makes glow. Glow does not necessarily mean that you are emitting particles. It appears to be just the magnetic regions reacting into a glow condition. That's what I'm seeing. This is the most important picture that's ever been taken of light. This is light coming in as light. This is light showing up as its particle nature, and that is light dividing, and here's what happens when it divides. All right, I just showed you coming in, stacking up here, then that black ball literally separates from the white. Not a tiniest taste of white black in here. 100% white. The little black balls don't do anything other than they're just black balls. They just roll around. Back here, there's a ton of extra ones laying around. They've always said, well, they haven't always said this. They've recently said that there's what they call a lepton universality problem, which means that there isn't the same number of these as there is of the black balls. There's more black balls than there is, and this is dark matter. It's dark matter. That's what they've always been looking for. Never could find it because they didn't realize the black and the white particles were tied together because they use 100 billion particles, dig through debris. They see them everywhere. They just don't know that they were ever attached together. There's no way for them to know that. I just showed you the most important picture of light ever taken, and it shows exactly the transition and two electron showers back to particles. I say the case is closed on what the nucleus is made of because these are light. Light is the smallest particle there is. They see them coming out of their protons, and they say, oh, these are smallest particles, a bunch of debris. Well, it all came because they were put together as 1,837 particles, which are these particles, make one proton. And that's why it stays in a ball, because it's a ball of particles, and the black is the gluon. The black is gravity, and it's the dark matter, and that's what holds these together. They always thought only electricity was the white particle because they never see the black particle. It's the first time it's ever been seen. Okay, my friends, Roger once again from Mud Fossil University, to be known as MFU, no longer a dirty word, and scientists at CERN are finally starting to understand the nucleus is made of light. Let's get into it. Okay, my friends, Roger, Mudfossil University. This is what CERN wants to see, a muon, which is a black, non-concussive cone, which is what they see. It's a ball, really. Then they see these explosive white showers come, and they have seen these, but no clue about their origin. All right, let's start here. LHC uses protons, smashing them together, hundreds of billions of times bigger than the particles we use, which is light from lasers. They saw this phenomena come up where two protons came close to each other and popped out these bosons. And they said, oh, they just came from nowhere. No, they didn't. They are an electron. Now, see down here, look, it says, Large Hadron known for smashing together protons. The energy from these collisions gets converted into matter, and then they dig through all the debris. The protons are not fired at one another individually. They're circulated in bunches, 100 billion particles, and then they smash into the bits, and then they dig through the trash. We use two particles through a venturi, which forces their magnetic regions to collapse, breaking the particle apart. They've been trying to do this since 1978. They had a big discussion about it. It says the physics of photon, which is what we're doing, collision, has been a topic of some interest for many decades. Indeed, a special meeting, 78, discussed the prospects of such a collision at the LEP, which is the Large Hadron Collider predecessor, and they were going to collide electrons with positrons. Well, they don't know the difference. But they couldn't do it because there is no such thing. These collisions are very clean as we're colliding photons, which are elementary particles and not composite ones like protons. A proton is 1,837 electrons. We're using 2 electrons, which makes 1 photon, crushing it, making it divide. And actually seeing the particles. I showed you, I know I've showed you, or you will see it. And this was first proposed and many years ago. Project never materialized. They couldn't do it. And we did it. Rod Warren did this just by accident, trying to do the single slit or experiment, well, double slit experiment. But he used a rounded slit, which forced the particles to crush in there. When they did, the black, it's actually dark matter separated from the explosive white matter, which is the electron showers. I think I just showed you that, or I'm going to show you again. I'm sure I'll show you many, 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 many times, and I have for the last 6 years. Okay, so what is light? Well, there it is right there. Those are photons. And they have that white concussive electron spray, which I will show you, and the black ball, which just separates from the concussive spray. Right now, that is approaching the venturi. That's the only time you see these show up in this configuration, is just before they explode. All right, this is how light compresses and creates electron showers. This is the light coming in. And it's sort of undefined, and then it starts to collect as its photon. Here it's the same thing, but it's just not descript as it is here. And you see it gets brighter and brighter, and then it explodes here. Well, that explosion separates the black from the white, and this is the muon, and that is the electron shower. All right, let me walk you through this. This, you know, was the particle. All right. Well, that particle is way back here, and it controls a region of magnetism around it, enormous. One hydrogen atom controls 21 centimeters. So if you bring magnetism within 21 centimeters of the hydrogen, it flips its polarity. What happens is that particle, this particle, is way back here, and in front of it is the wave, because it's a particle-wave duality, they call it. Well, it's the magnetic region. There's no borderline there. It just pushes and shoves these other ones. Push to shove. That's my statement about, that's all that energy is push to shove. It starts from vibration, and all you are is moving these, and they don't really glow until you move them fast enough. And at a certain point, they start to glow. and then they start to emit, and then we put this through the Venturi, and it sucked the particle, which was way back here, right out of the wave, just like a jet fighter. And I always show you a jet fighter creates gravity waves. Nobody's ever seen or thought about it before, but I'll show you. It's absolutely phenomenal. There's a black and a white to all energetic interactions, and I think I can prove that, or I can show it pretty clearly. Now, this is when the showers come through. They come at us. These are the Higgs fields that they always talked about. It's so fabulous. They're everywhere. They're literally everywhere. Now, this is something that really needs to be looked at, because this is a reverse spinner, I think, and it hit one of the Higgs fields and did this. That is just amazing. Now, this sort of shows that light spins, and it would spin to the right. That means it would drift to the left as you click the image of it, so that you're seeing it in one shot because it's so fast, but you're seeing it drift. It's spinning to the right. Anyway, people should understand that. And it's compressing up here, and it's expanded down here. So I would say it's slowing down. So we know it speeds up and slows down. There's just no question about that. We know we can accelerate it. We know it's a particle. We know it creates a wave. And then this, nobody knows about. So, why, it's a jet fighter breaking the sound barrier and so forth, and forcing the particles to concuss. You see the white glow here? That creates that black stripe out there. And it will, see how it's real black here, and it gets finer and finer and finer. Eventually it'll wear out. Now, there's a glow here, a glow here, a glow here, a glow here. Each one of them creates that push-to-shove black stripe. And then the last one is here. It wants to come back together, and it does. You can follow it collapsing. That's the collapse of the wave. Just like I'm showing, the same thing. This is like where the white ends up getting to the end and the black balls come rushing back in. Ours was a little different because we had an extreme spray, so the white balls took their time to get back in. This is not quite so concussive as our stuff was, so they just immediately lock back in. That's what a gravity wave is. And the dark matter is part of the white matter, which is light, which is on every molecule, on every atom, and every electron. And I think there has to be some extra black balls rolling around somewhere, because they seem to jump back in pretty damn quick. And they say that they're not equal. Now, there's a lot of work to be done here. Nothing's over yet. But I'm telling you, until we start looking at this thing in a whole different way. There's no neutrons and protons. No neutrons and protons. They're made of electrons. That's why when they're digging through that just enormous amount of debris, they're never going to find what I showed you with that first picture. Is the most important picture of light ever taken, because that literally is the heart of the nucleus. Okay, so we've been talking about light. Well, I say that light is what makes up protons. And protons are nothing more than 1,837 electrons. Now, what is a photon? A photon is back-to-back electrons. So, you divide, every photon has 2 electrons. So if you divided 1,837, you would understand that there was 1 extra electron. So what is that going to do? It's going to attract or push away the quantum particle that wants to get into the nucleus, but there's an extra electron already. So it says, no, I got too many already. So you have to stay out in this quantum range. Or it might become nuclear, it might become like an isotope and attract an extra electron into the core, and then it becomes an isotope of a certain atom. These atoms are not solid atoms. There's nothing between iron and cobalt. In between iron and cobalt, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of particles that are electrons. And here's how they stack together. And the crazy thing is, and I'm pretty sure I'm right about this, because I've been following the Russians in space here with their particle plasma in vacuum environment. Very, very interesting. Anyway, what ends up happening is the proton and every atom will have a central core that's hollow. And the outside is going to be the explosive part of the electrons. This black part is going to stick into the center, more or less. And because all the white ones want to oppose each other, you end up with a hole in the center. Now, what they're doing at CERN is they're colliding these things, not particles. They're colliding 100 billion particles. So what they're ending up with is pieces like a chunk here, which is just an insane chunk that never is going to happen in nature. And then they're going to see a little bitty one over here. Yes, there's an electron. And boom, yes, there's a photon. And boom, yes, there's some heavy-duty particles that are bigger than, these are your invasive, high-energy. They might be up in the gamma, up in that very high energy range, above electron capabilities. Almost like bigger bullets. You get a 22 caliber. It doesn't really, it's not going to feel good. But you get a 45, or 50 cal, you're done. Your case is closed on that. And that's what happens. The bigger the particle, the more the impact. This is as simple as that. Because let me show you what happens between green and red. All right, I'm sure I either have or I will tell you that Rod Warren was the one that developed the Venturi, quite by accident, but very, very profound. Now, this is another guy that jumped in very long ago. I don't know where it ever happened to him. Fabian, if you're out there, buddy, respond. He did the red and the green at the same time through the Venturi. You can see how more concussive the green is than the red. And then the green interferes with the red. The red is pushed down, the green is impacted, and a couple of little red particles go flying up here into the green area. But here's the same particles again every single time, and then the green re-impacts out here because of its extreme concussive value. You see how this trails off here? The green is interacting with the red and becoming, I don't know what it's doing, whether it's changing its color statistic here. I don't think so. It looks like it's just pushed the red out of the way and the green has filtered through it, showing its circular pattern, really is what it boils down to. The crazy thing is, I just showed you Rod did this, Fabian did this. This is nothing more than a cell phone, and very, very close up, apparently. I'm not doing this myself, and I'm not going to take credit for Rod's work. Rod is the one who developed this, and he's still doing this stuff. And he's the one that somebody should look into and fund him and understand this better, because he's I don't know if he understands completely what he's seeing. I think I do. And I love the work he's doing. It's absolutely, you see this here? Why is this corpuscular versus this here? Why is that? It's the same light coming in. What the hell's going on over here? Why is this so flared out? Apparently, this is, and he doesn't give me a whole lot of details, which is kind of fun. Apparently, there's the Venturi is right here, and the light is wrapping around. So we're seeing the back end of that light, and we're seeing the front end of the light coming at us. That's why we're seeing this more compacted and bright, and this flowing here. So this is spinning this way. It's flowing that way, but it's spinning in this direction. Well, here, let me show you something. I got somewhere around here. Here it is. Here's what we got. This, my friend, is what light is. It is a spinning particle. We saw the particle. I think I showed you how it spins. It spins this way. So what are we seeing when we see this? We're seeing that spinning particle going away from us, trailing away from us. When it comes up to this side, what are we seeing? We're seeing it coming at us. So as it comes at us, it gets more brilliant and more, you see it, more energetic. Now, apparently, and I'm not even positive of this, but I'm almost sure, this is the Venturi right here. And the light is being squeezed into it, and then it's coming out of the venturi, and all of them are so tight together, as it hits the open space of particles that are going to make the wave, it just flares out, and that's what causes these Higgs fields. And that's just this particle being so compressed that they're supposed to have a huge region. By the time it gets into here, it's like this. And when it hits there, it just wants to get apart from each other. That's why you see them. Every one of these is flying apart. Every one of those, I believe, is one of these particles. You see them? And they're spinning this way, so they're coming at us, and they're going away over here, so they're like flaring out. I love looking at this stuff. He sent me so many pictures years ago. You'd never be able to count the number of hours I spent looking at this. But this is what the Higgs fields are. And they're a spinning particle splaying out of itself, where all the particles take their own path. You know, and just for kicks, this one here, I believe, is another one of these pulses, but it's ahead of this one. And we're seeing the behind of it flowing away from it. And it's going to become part of the light that will be emitted from it, will be absorbed by the darkness. That's the best way I can explain it. All right, let me just show you a couple quick things. Back in 2018, I did this, that light is dark matter. Light has an additional component to it, which is the dark matter ball. Now, in addition to that, everything there is, like this mud fossil, these are mud fossils. Every particle in here has an electron and a muon attached to it. So every electron is not just... Boy, this is hard to explain. There's just a ton of electrons here. And they're configured in different stable regions of different stable quantities. That's what gives you carbon and silicon and magnesium and iron and all that stuff. And they are separated because they were biological. That's why all of these materials we find are separated all over the earth. At one time, they were biological. I'm sorry, that is a bone, and that's a mud fossil. And this is a goose, and that's a mud fossil. And there's a goose's feathers. And I've had all my stuff DNA certified and CAT scanned and tested in every single possible way. So it's time to come to a reality on every front. Now, this is a place you're supposed to be able to go to conversation and talk about this. This is CERN. Scientists discovered 4 new particles, and here's why they matter. Well, they matter because nothing is right that they're talking about. They call them quarks and all of these things. All they are is electrons, and 2 of them together make a photon. I believe I've shown this and then here, however, the way gluons interact with quarks makes the strong force behave very different. Yes, those are the black balls. Those are dark matter. They suck everything together. That's why they're really confused about this. This is one of the most troublesome features is a description of how the strong force holds the atomic nucleus together. That's those black balls. When we saw those white showers go through the venturi, instantly the black balls came back at a certain distance away. And I think that distance in between there, where it was nothing but white showers, is harvestable for a ton of free energy. Because when it came in, well, let me just show you something. All right, first of all, what is energy? What is energy? Energy is impact. My hand sitting there right there does absolutely nothing other than just stand there and sit there, and that's it. But if I smash into that screen, that's energy, concussion, explosion, bam. Now, what is that? That's a light wave sent by a red laser, and it's impacting all the particles in front of it, causing a glow. Yes. So there's some, it's created some very serious energetic action because of the pulse of the laser. However, nothing like that. That right there, my friend, is an increase in this concussive value literally thousands of times. And what it did was it separated, and this area right in here, I would say, is literally 100% energy. Not the 2 together energy, which can bounce off you. And it doesn't have all that superconductivity, because this is superconductivity right here. Absolutely superconductivity. 100% superconductivity right there. Now, if you can get that fed into something that would absorb it, because it wants to be absorbed, it's waiting to get absorbed, and that's where it does get absorbed, by the black balls come back. If you could put something here that would say, no, only go that way, down into a capacitive device, something, a big gigantic capacitor, or electron delivery device, electron grid, whatever. But I think you got electricity there that's just as phenomenal amounts. And when you look at the statistics, they say when it comes in here, it's coming in at mega electron volts. Coming out here is giga electron volts. That's billions versus millions. And it's only 1.7 million, I think, coming in. And it's 80 gigavolts coming out. Giga electron volts. It's very small. When I say giga electron volt, it's the electron volts they're not gigantic, but the stronger the input coming in, and all this is passive. There's nothing you'd have to do it whatsoever, and it's never been explored. What kind of different materials could we put to make the Venturi? What kind of form would we make? Would we make it rounded? Would we make it angular? Would we make it have steps? Would we concuss it back to make would we make it a copper or tin or aluminum or? What about the exit? Well, how deep would the funnel come? Because I could see Rod looked like he made a funnel on one of us. I showed one. The tube went out and then. I mean, this is fun. It's just fun. That's all I could say. See, these are those particle rays coming out. All right, this is where it gets really, really serious. And I am very serious right now. Our entire universe is completely saturated with light. The particles of light, as I showed you, are particles. They respond, they push to shove. We are being pushed to shove by all the particles coming at us from everywhere, mostly from the sun, obviously. So that is the scrub. That scrub forces electrons into our atmosphere, heating our atmosphere, creating violent storms in the ionosphere, the magnetosphere, down into our atmosphere that creates all the storms and all that. Where do you see what happened just recently? We are overloaded with electrons. Not only that, when we turn on 5G down here completely, that is a water vaporizer. It turns the water molecules that are condensed into vapor, which is 1,700 times bigger. Our planet is blowing up like a balloon, scrubbing harder. We are destroying our planet. 5G is the icing on the cake. You see this? This just happened. NBC News, swirling mass of plasma. Plasma is electrons. Raining electrons observed above Earth for the first time. When it comes to extreme weather, it's safe to say space hurricane qualifies. Yes, it does. And there it is right there. And this is what's happening. Our Earth is spinning, and all of these particles out here are pushing against our particles. That creates these arms. Normally, you would see the northern lights just sort of glimmer a little bit under intense radiation. This is just nothing, and it was there for hours. Scientists said last week they observed a previously unknown phenomenon, 620-mile wide, a swirling mass of plasma roiled for hours in Earth's upper atmosphere, raining electrons instead of water. This is not good. The researchers labeled the disturbance a space hurricane because it behaved like the rotating storm system, routinely batter coastlines and so forth. And that's push to shove again. This is push to shove, nothing more than that. And that's why they say they're coastlines, because you're getting two densities of pushing against a harder thing, and it makes it spin. Same thing here. We're never going to get out of this without reducing the number of electrons in our atmosphere, and I don't think we can at this point. And when we turn on 5G, the case is closed. As far as I'm concerned, if anybody can come up with can say I'm wrong, I'd like to hear them say it. I haven't had one scientist be able to engage with me because they're afraid to talk because they're going to lose their job if they speak up. I don't have a job, so I don't care.